Interesting. View on Facebook. I'm glad I went live because there we go. Hello, folks. For those who signed in early, thank you very much. We do start a little. First off, introductions. I'm Joe Wesley, and this guy here is.
Supply Chain Roy, also
Okay,
Roy Strauss.
fair enough. And basically, what we're talking about here, or we'll be talking about, is Roy Strauss takes his hot seat challenge. For those of you who've come back again, thank you very much for the revisit. For those of you who are seeing us for the first time, you might ask, what is this all about? Well, the concept is everybody talks that I've met in business talks about how good they are, how great they are, and if they're creative, sensitive, they'll even say, and I really care about my clients. Now, quite honestly, who's going to admit they don't care about their clients? So people can copy what you say, what you do, but nobody can duplicate who you are, the persona. So my purpose here is to challenge people to share who they are. And I start off by asking, what's your favorite pastime? And my purpose here is to help you discover what I call your secret sauce, at least one ingredient of it. And I say what ingredient because it's 30 minutes. It's not like we've had 3 or 4 months together as a business. But that being said, my goal is to get Roy Strauss, or my guest of the moment, to say, I never thought about that before. The people I'm bringing on, I have to say, are sharp people. In fact, it makes my challenge even better because I have to be more on point. So we spend the first 20 minutes talking about, I'm going to ask Roy at some point, what's his favorite pastime? And then we'll do question and answer. And for the last 10 minutes, we'll talk about his business and who he is, the person backs his business. And for those of you who see value in this guy, I'm not sure yet, we'll see how that works once he takes the hot seat challenge, that you might very well say, this is the guy, because I can't make up my mind who I want to go with. This is the guy I want to represent me for the money I'm giving back to him. And that is happening consistently so far. So I think it will happen here also. So I'm going to ask you, Roy, thank you for being a part of the challenge and taking your hot seat. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite pastime?
And my favorite pastime is travel.
And why is that?
Well, from day one, as far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to be different.
Oh, I'm going to interrupt. I'm sorry for that. First off, you may see me looking down every now and then. We have a clean slate and I take notes. So it's not like I'm reading a script. This is not rehearsed. It's not scripted. So it's all fresh. So you like traveling again for what reason?
Well, from as far back as I could remember, I always liked being different.
Okay.
Okay. And how can you be more different than going to different places where you meet different people in different cultures, in different scenery? I love panoramas and nature. I've been to all the national parks. I've been.
I got to ask you, I got to interrupt. Different.
Sure.
Now, I'm getting the impression that 2.5-year-old toddler, you decided you need to travel because you like being different. I don't quite get the timeline on that.
No, I always wanted to be different, and when I evolved into an adult, that's when I started
Oh,
traveling.
okay.
Obviously,
So wasn't that your
but it's
parents
just
took you
part.
traveling
Yeah,
that
it's
you
just part of
on
me
your
being
own?
different, and me being different is learning about all other different, and that's fascinating to me.
I hear that. So was this a mechanical thing? Did you get zapped by lightning some days? Says, I want to be different, or was it a slow realization that grew on you? How does that work?
It's actually a combination. It's me discovering who I was and what turned me on.
Right. And so I'm going to make it now. Let me say this differently. Were you one of those children in school that were behavioral problems because you were bored and you were always all over the place looking for different things to do? How tell me something about your school life.
I have no idea how you knew that. Okay. My parents were amazing. My father had a true photographic memory. My
Right.
mother graduated high school in New York at the age of 14.
Right.
Okay. And my mother was the best. She would read to me every day from the time I was 2 and a half, or whatever.
Right.
And before I started school, kindergarten, I was already able to read newspapers and do math that fourth graders were doing, which
Right.
meant by the time I got to first grade, I knew everything they were showing me, and I was bored out of my mind.
Mm.
Okay, and just like you said, it became somewhat of a behavior problem.
You said,
And my mother,
excuse me, folks. I know this guy. He still has a behavioral problem. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
uh, and my mother showed me my report cards later, and had outstanding in every subject and needs improvement in every behavior category.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Interesting. Okay, so you were kind of born like that, the DNA working its mojo on you. I get that.
Yeah.
So traveling, did you? Again, I didn't grow up in a world that we traveled a lot. Was this something you say as an adult you began traveling? What was your first trip? Do you recall?
My honeymoon.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay.
interesting.
My parents were very simple people. Okay, uh, it was a long time ago in the 50s and 60s when I grew up, and
Right.
when I was a kid, it was an excitement to go down to the corner and actually get on the subway and go somewhere on the train. Okay, but we never traveled anywhere.
Right.
We went up to the Catskill Mountains every summer, and that was it. So finally, I got married and go, whoa, we're gonna travel.
There's a world out there. So you would get on the subway and travel to an endpoint and come back, or was there was a goal that you wanted to get to? Was for the art of getting on the subway and the
No,
experience of looking at things.
again, we're talking about growing up in the Bronx,
Right.
and I was a kid in the 50s. Okay,
Okay.
so a little later on, we would go to Madison Square Garden, but I'd go with my older cousin to Yankee Stadium,
Right.
and I'd go to a place called Fordham Road where all the stores were. Mine was a little neighborhood with just little grocery stores and stuff. So
Right.
the train on the corner was my first travel, I guess, because I always wanted to go on it and go somewhere when I was a kid.
Right.
So it wasn't worldwide travel like I do now, but it was traveling away from where I
No,
was.
I see this traveling, and that's why I asked the question. That I had this vision that sometimes if you had some coins to kill, you might deliberately choose a location you already know or a location you've yet to go to. Did you have a method to that?
Uh, when I was a kid, um, you didn't do any planning. Everything was spontaneous,
Okay,
unless
fair.
unless you had to go to the Yankee Red Sox game at Yankee Stadium.
I get that.
Other than that, everything was pretty much spontaneous. Hey, what do you want to do today? Hey,
Right.
why don't we do that? And then you go get on the train. I was lucky; the train was on the corner. I was a half a block away.
I hear that. Nice. So I'm going to make an assumption, and this is only after 5 minutes of dialogue, that if that much, when you were you a groupie or were you kind of more your own persona? Or the group said, "Let's go here." You says, "No, I think I'll go there." Where did you fall in on that?
No, I was not a groupie at all. Okay,
Okay.
groupie just implies more of the same, not
Right.
different. Okay,
Hmm.
I mean when everyone wore bell-bottom jeans back in the day,
Right.
I refused to. Everyone was doing it.
Oh, you refused to. Okay.
Yeah, when people started getting earrings or tattoos or whatever. Oh, that's what the group thing was. I refused to.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to be different than who I am, and what I say and do is how people are going to notice me, not because my hair is dyed red or something like that.
Right. I get that. That's interesting. So, when you began traveling after you got married, how long have you been married for, by the way?
55 years.
Oh, good. Interesting. Well, either one or two things. Either you're an amazing person, your wife is an amazing person. So
Or,
for those,
or we both get a medal.
fair enough. I get that. So you did your first travel, and how did you choose your spot?
Um, we we were going to get on an airplane, both of us, for the first times in our lives,
Right.
and we
Now,
went.
excuse me, was that your idea or your wife's idea?
It was our idea because we were getting married Christmas Day, and it was going to be cold.
Nice.
So we
Okay.
wanted to get down to somewhere tropical. So again, all my aunts and uncles were saying, "Oh, we went to the Bahamas. You got to go to Bahamas." And I'm saying they're 23. I'm 23, and they're 46.
Right.
So we're not going to go to Bahamas. We went to Puerto Rico instead,
Okay.
and we took a day trip to St. Thomas, which was, for us phenomenal. We got on an airplane and we went somewhere.
Fair enough. And it seems almost, if I'm hearing it correctly, that and you made that point again, your parents, your relatives, older generation suggested in good intent where you ought to go, and your first response is, nope, not going to do it that way because not necessarily your parents or uncles and aunts, but as you said earlier, you deliberately go the other direction. If I'm hearing you correctly on that.
Also, my assessment was if 46-year-olds like it, why should a 23-year-old like it?
Okay, fair enough. Which is a different nuance of saying perhaps the same thing. And
Yes.
it brings to mind a thought. So when you were younger and people would suggest things, was your response was, well, if you're suggesting it, it doesn't make sense, or no, that's not what I have interest, or doesn't grab at me, doesn't make sense? Did you have a thought process, even it might have been subliminal, that caused you to go your specific direction or counter direction, perhaps better put?
Um, it's a combination of, like you said before, nature and nurture.
Okay.
It's how is I. This is how I was born, and this is what I observed. It's turning me on at that moment in time.
Okay. I'm not a fast writer, folks, so give me some time on this.
I can speak slowly for you.
Time. See, I tell my guests that sometimes it's more of a challenge for me than it is for them. So this is I'm enjoying this. So, but to say this differently, it seems to be that when somebody makes a comment about what to do, it's not your first reaction to say okay. That the initial reaction is to, I would say, mentally step back, perhaps reevaluate, look at it fresh from your perspective. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, asking correctly. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm saying.
Um, well, however you ask it, I'm going to interpret what I'm hearing, and then either I heard what you were saying, and we have a good message communication, or you're going to correct me, and we'll get it right the second time.
Fair enough.
One thing you'll find interesting. Okay, so we get married, and the one thing we did plan is we're going to have a 5-year plan before we have kids,
Right.
because we both wanted to travel. Again, Puerto Rico was just the first airplane ride ever for either of us.
Right.
And also, we would wait 5 years and then have a kid so we could save money to buy a house in those 5 years.
Fair enough.
And all of that happened. And which you may find interesting. So I talk about travel. Um, when I was 25 years old, it was going to be the last time we would both have a whole summer off based on what we were doing.
Okay.
So we spent that summer traveling through 9 countries in Europe over the 8 weeks of the summer.
Mm.
Okay, so and that really affirmed. We were out about 6 weeks, and my wife said to me, "Gee, are you ready to go back home?" I said, "No, I'm ready to get all my friends and bring them back here with us."
That's
So,
funny. Now, when you're now, spouses, two different people. Um, when you traveled, was it a matter of let's go out and do this today, or was it like let's hang out at the beach, or let's try this curio shop? Was there an agenda? Was it kind of, hey, we're here, let's see what's in the neighborhood? What was your method to that
well,
travel?
different places had different attractions. Okay,
Okay.
so when you went to Venice, you had to go to Lido Beach. Everyone else went to took the canal boats and everything. Yeah, of course we did that.
Right.
Uh, when we got, of course, we went to Paris, we had to do certain things, but then we found small restaurants and little neighborhoods that locals told us about. What we found is if you try and spend some time with a local, whether you hire a tour person or you meet someone at a restaurant and talk to them a lot about what's happening on the first day, then when you spend in the rest of the time, like I said, we went to 9 countries in 8 weeks. So like every we'd be 3 or 4 days. So the first day we'd meet a local, learn the ropes,
Right.
and do and see a lot of the things that weren't in the tour guides.
Fair enough. So you didn't limit yourself to what's in the tour guide or not. You made your side trips based on. I just made a note of something that you made a comment to me when I asked you earlier about a question I was asking, statement. I wasn't quite clear what I was saying, not very well. And your response was that, well, no matter what you say, you will interpret it from what you're hearing. And to me, that was a very strong statement. And I'm bringing that up because I'm going to go into your business in a little bit here. That, again, you follow your own lead. I'll say it like that. And to say this differently, I understand your business is what again? I'm not quite clear what you do because it's not my industry. Could you share with the audience?
Sure, my business is the Strauss Consulting Group. we're supply chain experts, and I'll go into a little bit about what that is because for even though what was interesting is when came along, finally people knew what supply chain was. You couldn't get toilet paper, you couldn't get a bicycle. Before that, I'd say a supply chain expert, and everyone would go, "Well, what's that?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so again. Starting my own consulting practice. And again, it's the 40th year. I started in January 1983. So we
Okay.
had several iterations. I was by myself for 5.5 years. I had a partner for 8 years. I was a partner in a 25-person firm for 6 years. I ran the consulting division for a larger consulting company for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And approximately the last 20 years, I prefer to be on my own and just bring in experts as I need them for any particular project. So I have total freedom to do what I want when I want, and I'm not accountable to anybody except my clients.
Understood.
Okay. And just to take it one step further, when I started the practice, I said three things. Obviously, the first one was I'm going to be different because Sunni's more of the same.
Right.
Second of all, luckily, I was born with a certain amount of this you can't create it, a certain amount of creativity, which I knew,
Right.
and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And the third thing was I'm going to outwork everybody.
Okay.
So if you're different and you give best answers and you outwork everybody, you last 40 years. Like I
Right.
said, I started in January 1983.
Okay.
And the
And by
way
the way, happy January anniversary.
yeah, well, December, yeah, January 1st. Actually, I started January 2nd,
Okay.
1983.
See,
Thank you.
folks, I do listen.
Yes.
So I'm going to suggest this that you, virtually every business owner I've listened to will make the claim that they're different. Mostly everybody I've listened to say they will work the hardest ever possible that could be worked. I get that. And the challenge is that if people hearing it as potential consumers, we too have what I call our ROI factor, a return on investment. And I
Sure.
think a lot of people don't spend money because they're not sure they're going to get their money's worth.
Hmm.
And none of us have a budget anyway, unless you're Apple Computer or something.
Sure.
So it needs to be well spent. What I'm hearing about you, aside from what you say,
Hmm.
certain characteristics about yourself, and maybe I'll start and work backwards. You say you enjoy the novelty of what you do. It's not many people will look for a traditional approach for things. First, it's got to happen. You're a supply chain, as you say, expert, and if it doesn't work, you don't keep clients very long. And certainly, you're seasoned in what you do. So your bullet points of history are spot on. But it may still cause a consumer a choice because decision of you versus somebody else, and that might even go to a price issue. And one question is always asked, no matter who you are, what's your fee? How much do you charge? Because they may base you more like a commodity than a value provider of service because they don't have any criteria. But what I'm hearing here is, again, working backwards. You were born the way you were born, and it wasn't a matter of. And each of us have unique histories. So from you have parents of distinctive DNA sequence syndrome, call it what you want. You were the product of their combined DNA syndrome. And before you knew that you were going to be a supply chain expert, you were already drumming your own, beating your own drum. You were not, you're not contained. You're not contained by the world around you. You will follow your nose. You're not random because clearly you have a history of one staying married. You think you said 35 years?
Of what?
Married. You were married for 35 years?
55.
55 years. Okay. And you've done your business progress of learning and now you're on your own. So you certainly have a solid nature about what you are as you gain skill. But in part, what I'm hearing about you, that here's a persona that when you blew me off on my question because it wasn't clear, and I'm sure a lot of your clients to be aren't very clear what they want, you tend to reject at the moment the noise and stuff they throw at you because you need your own perspective. That's kind of what I'm hearing here.
No,
And
it's the exact opposite.
oh, go ahead, tell
Uh,
me.
the more unclear the noise is, the more the opportunity to get them pointed in the right direction. Because if they could express it clearly and to the point, the odds are they're running their business much better to begin with. It's just the opposite of what you're saying.
I
Okay.
hear that, and folks, Roy just re-enhanced my point. He does not follow leads. He develops his own path. I do that deliberately, audience. So that's funny, but this is something. So when somebody's looking for a solution
Okay.
to a problem being solved, what they say or don't say, whether you do it the opposite approach or not, your response is not to follow the lead. If I'm
Okay.
hearing you correctly.
Well, what you do to succeed, and again, this is the 40th year. I've finished my 40th year of my consulting practice.
Right.
Most of my competition never made it to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you're not different, you're not creative, you're just not going to be there. So some examples, for instance. Okay, so as a supply chain expert, again, on a broad scale, supply chain acquisition of raw materials to manufacture product or product to resell, from the
Right.
acquisition part, going through all the steps along the way to final delivery on the end user's doorstep. That's a supply chain. Okay.
Okay.
So when I started my first real job, they told me, "Oh, you're the Bronx High School of Science numbers guy. You're going to be inventory, and then inventory and purchasing." Okay. And I was there a short time with no experience, and I said to myself, why are we selling? Why are we carrying all this stuff? It's not selling. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I started creating criteria. Can I sell this profitably or not?
Right.
How that translates into now is, okay, and now meaning over the 40 years, okay, the more stuff you have in the building, the more space it's taking.
Right.
So the more stuff you remove that you don't need, it's less space.
Right.
Well, if I have less space, I'm going to go through faster, less time, so my service levels are going up.
Right.
If I have less space, it's less time, so I need less staff. And if I need less staff, I need less equipment. If the person's not there, I don't need a forklift or whatever.
Right.
Again, we're as supply chain, we design distribution and manufacturing centers, and we are our customers. We're B2B. We work for businesses, not consumers.
Right.
Okay. So one of my and everything that I'm bringing to the table on this came out of my brain from when I started on that first job, starting in that first week.
Mm-hmm.
My differentiators are from here. The formulas I created are from here. So I have differentiators. I could say, yes, we're going to help you reduce your inventory and get your purchasing straight. So, and if we do that, you're going to exponentially increase your customer service. You're going through faster. And based on what I just said, you're saving money on space, inventory, staff, and equipment.
I hear that. And I would suggest this for consideration to you and to the audience, that perhaps any seasoned, skilled, well-trained, dedicated supply chain expert could maybe work through the same process. But what I'm hearing from you, in addition to that, this is to me the nuanced value that you bring to your industry, that for many people it may be a mechanical process, and that's in part what I'm hearing here, which makes sequential sense and value. But you have a substance about you that will intuitively look at it from a different approach and a creative approach, because this is who you are. That the routine mechanism, if it's got to work, it makes sense on that. But it's quite likely that the little bit of unique Roy Strauss persona will likely give any project you take on a value to your client more than a traditional supply chain expert, because there's a part about you that rejects, as you rejected me. No, I'm saying just the opposite. No matter what you say, I don't care. My mindset is I'm going to figure it out on my own, or my mind figures it out for me, whichever. And that's what I'm hearing from you. That if people have, you can go to supply chain person, I'm assuming, and you get maybe 30,000 people in a Google search in under 1 second. Or if you have a problem that has been, certainly if it's been looked at before by supply chain types, hasn't worked for you, you're reluctant to spend money again. I'm going to commit myself by saying Roy will likely be the kind of persona you want working in your work environment, your factory perhaps. And it may not be just a factory, it may be different types of flow of material and time. But I would, what I'm hearing from you is you were born the way you were born. that it's in your gene, your DNA environment that you will reject, not that you reject the obvious, you don't flow into that. You don't follow the lead of what's there. You see things differently.
Well,
You
can I,
connected.
if I can interject now, because
Go ahead.
I'm going to talk about exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
All right.
So I get hired for that first job. I'm the purchasing inventory guy. And little did I know this company I joined would grow tenfold in 10 years. I'd live hyper growth, which is the best thing that can happen to anybody in my field. Okay.
Right.
Because you're experiencing everything. Okay. So I'm there for 2 months. It's May now. And the president comes in and says, I hired a consultant. We have to grow the warehouse. We're growing like mad. I hired a consultant. You're in a numbers guy. You're going to work with him.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm working with the Harvard MBA and have all of 2 months experience in the real world. And I don't like anything he's doing.
Mm.
So I went to the president and said, I don't like anything he's doing. He said, you're a young kid. Listen and learn. Don't say that to Roy. So I started taking notes. And a
Right.
month later, he read my notes and he said, I don't know what's going on here, but the kid knows more than a consultant. He's running the project.
Fair enough.
This is how I learned. I was born to do this. I see things other people don't see, and I create things they can't imagine, part of the 40 years. So let's take it, again, differentiators, okay? So let's take it forward 3 years. We had a 5-year growth plan. And after 3 years, the president calls me in and said, you screwed up. We had a 5-year plan and we outgrew it in 3 years.
Mm.
So what does Roy say? Don't sell so much. No, I was joking. Okay. But I said that. I said, look, that was his plan. Let's see what I can do. So he gives me what he wants to do and he tells me what the resources are. And I said, well, you can't. I came back a couple of days later. I said, you can't do it. And he goes, what do you mean I can't do it? I can do what I want in president. I said, good, so fail. And what I did is, you walk into a company and you ask anybody, someone has to know where they're going. Tell me about growth. Oh, we're going to grow 10% a year in the next 5 years. And how do you know that? Well, that's what we think. Okay. Well, as a result of what happened then, I compared the resources available to what he wanted to do. And I
Right.
found the gaps. And I said, either you shrink the growth plan or increase the resources. And that in 1974 was the birth of the operational growth plan that came out of here.
Mm.
Okay. So any company I go to, I have all the formulas set up. What are you looking to do? In less than a day, we can compare, find the gaps, and now they can pick, this is what I believe we can do. And then I give exception reporting. So if you're growing faster, you may get in automation sooner or later on. If we're growing slower, my clients are first to stop spending into a recession.
Mm-hmm.
So now my clients, whatever happens, they know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and what it's going to cost them. Okay. You tell me how many companies you walk into that have that know what's going to happen. The
Okay.
answer is we think what's going to happen and they don't know. Another differentiator that came out of my creation.
If I can interrupt,
I'm done.
I do a commercial break. This time goes fast. We got 3 minutes left here, and so what I'm going, if I can summarize what I'm going to, you said very nicely by example what you bring of unique value to what you do in your business, and for those who are listening to us, take advantage of it. The information to contact Roy is in the included link as a part of this program, his email, his other sites also, his website. For myself, I call myself a business therapist. I also see things, and I don't claim that I see dead people, but I will see things about you of unique value that you may not yet have discovered about yourself, and I call that your secret sauce. I think Roy is oozing with secret sauce ingredients. Now, understand, folks, this is a one point time in life, so I'm not going to know as much about him, not even close, that he knows about himself. I think he's a very insightful persona, and I'm not saying that lightly. But what I would like to say is remember to share this with your friends, with your associates. Please leave comments. We do audit anything, and even a thumbs up would be nice. We would thank you for that like. Any questions, contact Roy himself through his links. If you'd like to discover your secret sauce, at least in part, by taking the Hot Seat Challenge, feel free to do that also. Remember to subscribe and remember to share us. So I interrupted. How would you like to close this out, Roy?
Okay, so like I said, there are 3 parts to the practice: growth, product mix and inventory, and of course, creative design in the distribution and manufacturing center. I don't have time,
Hmm.
but we're creative as you can be. No one's going to give you what we give you. And the closing sentence is going to be when Warren Buffett is looking to buy a business, he's not buying stock, he's buying ownership. He looks for three things: they have the best product with the best service with the lowest costs. And what we just showed you is we're going to create that for you. And the result is that you will continually beat the competition and exponentially decrease your operational costs. And again, it comes along with the creativity, and you see, you're going to get that hard work from me.
Fair enough. And that's a strong statement, but I'm actually believing this guy, Roy Strauss. I want to thank you for being a part of our program. It's a half an hour program. We do it every week. Feel free to join us on a weekly basis. My guest next week will be Toby Cohen. And stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you for sharing this time with us. And please leave your comments and remember to subscribe.
Yeah, and thank you, Joe. I can't believe how much I enjoy this.
I did too. It opens my mind up listening to these people. It was nice. So we're ending now, folks.
I'm
Again,
not one. I'm not one of these people. I'm different.
all my guests so far are different. That's the whole point. Each of us are different. We have our secret sauce. Thanks for closing that